Every wall, color, and sound inside your child's room is speaking to their brain, whether you realize it or not. For a neurotypical child, those messages are subtle. But for a child on the autism spectrum, that language can become overwhelming, even painful. What seems like a simple light fixture or a soft toy might actually be overloading their sensory system, disrupting their sleep, or increasing anxiety without anyone noticing. This video will give you something more valuable than decoration: understanding. You'll discover the 5 scientifically proven steps to adapt your child's room according to their sensory profile so that it doesn't just look calm, it actually feels calm to their nervous system. By the end, you'll know how to turn overstimulation into serenity using the same principles that guide therapeutic design and neuroarchitecture. We'll talk about color, sound, light, and layout, but in a way that connects science with empathy. You'll see that your child's environment is not only shaping their behavior, it's shaping their emotional safety, their learning, and even their capacity to connect. This isn't about perfection, it's about communication, because your child's room is already talking. You just need to learn to listen. If you skip this video, you might continue designing from the outside, focusing on beauty while missing what truly matters: how your child's brain feels inside that beauty. But if you stay, you'll learn how to build a sanctuary that speaks your child's sensory language, a space that helps their mind rest, regulate, and grow. You're about to discover that a well-designed environment isn't luxury, it's therapy. It's how you teach your child that the world, starting with their own room, can be predictable, gentle, and safe. Step 1. Understand the spectrum before you design. Before you choose a single color or piece of furniture, you must understand how your child's brain experiences space. Designing a room for a child on the autism spectrum is not about aesthetic taste, it's about neurological empathy. Every decision, from the softness of a blanket to the angle of a lamp, interacts with the nervous system that processes the world differently. The DSM-5 defines 3 levels of the autism spectrum. Level 1, children who can communicate but struggle with flexibility and sensory balance. Level 2, those who require structured support and predictable environments to thrive. Level 3, children who need constant guidance and extremely low sensory stimulation to avoid overload. Each level perceives the same space in a completely different way. Research by architect and autism design specialist Magda Mustafa shows that children on the spectrum react to environmental chaos, inconsistent light, echoing sound, or clutter with physiological stress similar to anxiety attacks. When the space is unpredictable, the brain releases cortisol. When it feels stable, it releases oxytocin, the chemical of calm and trust. That's why your first task is not to decorate, it's to observe. Watch how your child reacts to the sensory elements around them. Does the hum of a refrigerator bother them? Do they stare at spinning fans or cover their ears in certain rooms? These signals reveal their sensory thresholds, their personal map of comfort and overload. A study from the Autism Research Institute found that when a child's space aligns with their sensory needs, their ability to self-regulate improves by up to 60%. The same child who melts down in one environment may flourish in another, not because they changed, but because the environment stopped fighting their brain. Understanding the spectrum means understanding that no 2 autistic children are the same. One might crave motion, another silence. One may need control over light, another tactile comfort. Neurodiversity means the design must adapt, not the child. So before you paint, plan. Before you add, listen. The first blueprint of a neuro-inclusive room is not drawn on paper, it's drawn from observation. Step 2. Decode the child's sensory profile. Every child on the autism spectrum has a unique sensory fingerprint, a personal map of how their body translates the world. Some crave stimulation, others feel assaulted by it. Understanding that fingerprint is the foundation of every design decision you'll make. Without it, even the most beautiful room can become a battlefield for their senses. Occupational therapist Winnie Dunn identified 4 sensory processing patterns that help decode this map. The hypersensitive child perceives everything louder, brighter, and stronger. What feels neutral to you can be overwhelming to them. The hyposensitive child, in contrast, under-registers stimuli and seeks intensity to feel grounded. The seeker actively looks for movement, color, and texture, while the avoider withdraws from change and needs sameness to feel safe.
To identify your child's profile, don't rely on general labels. Observe patterns. Does your child cover their ears when water runs or when music plays? Do they avoid certain fabrics? Do they get calmer when wrapped tightly or when the light dims? These responses are not random, they're biological communication. Studies from the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders show that sensory mismatches between the environment and the child's processing style increase stress markers and meltdowns. But when the sensory input is aligned with their profile, behavior stabilizes and learning improves. For a hypersensitive child, design becomes a shield. Reduce contrasts, avoid glossy surfaces, and choose natural textures that absorb light instead of reflecting it. For a hyposensitive child, design becomes stimulation, varied textures, interactive lighting, and gentle motion elements like swings or tactile walls. Seekers thrive in environments that let them explore safely, while avoiders find peace in minimal, predictable layouts with muted tones and clear routines. This understanding turns decoration into therapy. You're no longer designing a pretty space, you're designing a nervous system regulator. Each sound, surface, and scent becomes part of the conversation between your child's brain and the world. Knowing their sensory profile gives you control, not over your child, but over what surrounds them. You can't change how their brain receives the world, but you can change how the world speaks back. That's the power of sensory-informed design. Step 3. Control light, the brain's silent regulator. Light is not decoration, it's information, and for the autistic brain, it's one of the most powerful regulators of emotion, energy, and sleep. The human body reads light as a signal for what to feel and how to behave. In a neurodivergent child, that signal is magnified. A flicker invisible to you can feel like a strobe. A cold light can feel sharp, almost painful. Neuroscience has proven that light directly influences melatonin and serotonin production, the hormones responsible for rest, mood, and focus. A 2018 study from Harvard Health showed that children exposed to high levels of artificial blue light before sleep had delayed melatonin release and disrupted circadian rhythm for up to 90 minutes. For autistic children, whose nervous systems are already hyperresponsive, the impact is even stronger. Your goal isn't just to illuminate, it's to harmonize. Natural light should be the anchor of the room whenever possible. Soft daylight, filtered through linen curtains, provides gradual transitions that help the brain adapt. The autistic mind struggles with sudden changes in brightness. It needs consistency and predictability in light patterns. Replace bright white LEDs with warm bulbs in the 2700 to 3000 K range. Avoid fixtures that cast harsh shadows or create refractions, as these can distort depth perception and increase anxiety. For level 1 children, those with higher adaptability, dynamic lighting that changes gradually during the day helps reinforce time perception. For level 2, use consistent ambient lighting with clear control over brightness. For level 3, keep it steady, diffuse, and uniform. Stability in lighting equals emotional safety. If your child is hypersensitive, observe how they react to sunlight. Some may prefer dim spaces or indirect lighting, while others crave brightness, but only when filtered through warm tones. For seekers or hyposensitive profiles, gentle play with light can provide needed stimulation, like projectors with slow, soft movement. This is where neuroarchitecture meets emotion. Light doesn't just affect what we see, It dictates what we feel. Too much contrast confuses the autistic brain. Too little light reduces engagement. The balance between the two is not aesthetic, it's therapeutic. Remember that the light that guides your child to sleep tonight will also teach their brain how to wake tomorrow. It's not just about designing a room, it's about aligning the body's biology with the soul's need for calm. Step 4, the power of texture and material. Touch is the first language of safety. Long before a child understands words, their body learns the world through sensation, warmth, softness, rhythm, pressure. For a child on the autism spectrum, this language of texture is amplified. Every surface communicates comfort or discomfort, predictability or surprise. What you choose to place under their fingers, feet, and skin directly shapes their sense of stability. The Occupational Therapy International Journal confirms that textures activate the vagus nerve, the pathway that connects touch to emotional regulation. When a child feels safe through touch, their heart rate slows, their breathing deepens, and their nervous system enters a state of balance. But when textures are inconsistent or overly synthetic, the opposite occurs. Fight or flight responses rise even in a room meant to calm. That's why materials in an autistic child's environment must be carefully curated. Natural fibers like cotton, linen, wool, and untreated wood carry organic irregularities that the body recognizes as familiar and grounding. Plastic, polyester, and glossy surfaces, on the other hand, reflect light and temperature in unpredictable ways, overwhelming sensory avoiders and distracting sensory seekers. Consistency is crucial. A rug that's soft one day and rough the next after cleaning can feel like a betrayal to a child who relies on tactile predictability. Choose materials that stay stable over time, both in temperature and texture. For children who crave touch, add layered textiles, a heavy blanket, a woven mat, or a soft cushion, elements that invite safe sensory exploration. For those who avoid contact, keep surfaces simple, breathable, and cool. Colors also have texture, at least to the brain. Matte finishes are perceived as calmer than glossy ones. Muted tones, especially in nature's palette, beige, sand, clay, mist, give the autistic mind space to rest visually while still providing gentle sensory input. A study from the Sensory Processing Foundation found that environments rich in tactile predictability increased attention span by up to 40%. When you design with texture in mind, you're teaching your child that the world can be gentle. You're saying, every surface you touch here will respond with kindness. That message, repeated daily through the body, becomes a deep internal truth. I am safe where I am. This is how a room becomes more than a physical space. It becomes a dialogue between the child's skin and the mother's intention, a quiet, constant reassurance that the world was made to hold them, not to hurt them. Step 5, zoning, creating safe and predictable spaces. For a neurotypical brain, a bedroom can serve many purposes: sleep, play, study, daydreaming. But for a child on the autism spectrum, the brain depends on clear spatial cues to understand what to expect. When every activity happens in the same undifferentiated space, the nervous system struggles to predict transitions, and anxiety quietly builds. Zoning transforms chaos into clarity. It teaches the brain, through space itself, when to rest, when to explore, and when to regulate. The foundation of zoning is structure. Begin by dividing the room into 3 main areas: a rest zone, a play zone, and a regulation zone. Each one should have visual and sensory boundaries that communicate its purpose without needing words. For instance, the rest zone should be visually simple and consistent: matte textures, neutral colors, and minimal movement. This tells the body it's safe to release control. The play zone can introduce subtle stimulation: Soft contrasts, gentle patterns, or flexible furniture that encourages movement without chaos. The goal isn't excitement, but exploration within boundaries. And the regulation zone, a corner or nook dedicated to emotional reset, should invite withdrawal. Soft cushions, dim light, and repetitive sensory elements like gentle textures or rhythmic sounds give the child a place to recalibrate before rejoining interaction. Research from Autism Speaks and Magda Mostafa's Aspects design framework confirms that spatial clarity reduces meltdowns and supports emotional independence. In predictable environments, cortisol levels drop, and oxytocin, the bonding hormone, increases, improving both mood and focus. Colors can help reinforce these distinctions. Cooler tones for rest, warm muted hues for play, and earthy neutrals for the regulation area. Avoid abrupt contrast between zones. Instead, use gradual transitions that the child can visually decode: a change in flooring texture, a soft curtain divider, or a shift in light temperature. For level 1 children, zones can be flexible, blending slightly to support autonomy. For level 2, boundaries should be visual and physical, clear cues that define expectations. For level 3, consistency is sacred. Even minor spatial rearrangements can cause disorientation. Zoning is the architectural version of emotional coaching. You're teaching your child, through the silent structure of the room, that life has rhythm and safety, that every state, excitement, focus, or rest has its rightful place. And when the body learns predictability in one room, it begins to expect it in the world outside. Because in the end, a well-zoned room doesn't just organize furniture, it organizes emotion. It tells your child, without a single word, the world is safe because it makes sense. The invisible factor, acoustics and frequency. Sound is one of the most underestimated elements in design, yet for a child on the autism spectrum, it can be the difference between calm and chaos.
The autistic brain doesn't filter sound the same way a neurotypical brain does. What feels like background noise to you, the hum of electricity, footsteps in another room, the buzz of a fluorescent bulb, can feel like a storm of dissonance to them. Acoustics shape emotion. Studies from Autism Spectrum Australia and Neuroscience Letters reveal that unpredictable or high-pitched sounds trigger overactivation of the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm center. This means that even if your child can't express discomfort verbally, their body reacts: increased heart rate, shallow breathing, irritability, or withdrawal. The environment becomes unsafe not because of danger, but because of sound. To restore balance, you must teach the room how to listen. That begins with absorption. Soft elements, thick curtains, rugs, upholstered furniture, fabric wall panels prevent echo and muffle harsh frequencies. Avoid hard surfaces like metal or tile in sleeping and regulation zones. Their sound reflections amplify chaos. When you soften the acoustics, you lower the brain's vigilance. But quiet doesn't always mean silence. Some children find total silence unsettling because it amplifies internal noise, their own heartbeat, breath, or thoughts. For them, controlled auditory input can soothe. Low-frequency sounds like rainfall, ocean waves, or heartbeat rhythms at 60 to 70 beats per minute align with the body's natural tempo, promoting coherence in the nervous system. Music tuned to 432 Hz, known for its harmonic resonance, has been shown to reduce stress and stabilize breathing patterns in sensory-sensitive children. Sound also carries spatial cues. A consistent auditory landscape, the distant hum of a purifier, the soft rhythm of air movement, helps the autistic brain predict what comes next. Sudden interruptions or changes in volume, on the other hand, can feel like physical shocks. If your child startles easily, replace sudden alarms with progressive sounds or gentle vibrations. In a sensory-regulated room, acoustics act as emotional architecture. You are shaping the unseen,
the air between things, into a carrier of safety. The goal isn't silence, it's softness, a space that listens more than it speaks, a frequency that tells your child's nervous system, you can rest now. Because peace isn't just what we see, it's what we stop hearing. The space as co-regulator, mother and child connection. A room does more than hold a child's body. It holds the emotional field between the mother and the child. Neuroscience calls this co-regulation, the process by which two nervous systems synchronize through proximity, tone, and environment. For autistic children whose sensory worlds can feel unpredictable, this connection is the bridge that teaches their body what calm feels like. The Harvard Center on the Developing Child has shown that a caregiver's regulated nervous system directly shapes the child's ability to regulate their own. When you enter a space anxious, rushed, or overstimulated, your body emits cues, posture, breath rhythm, even heart rate, that your child subconsciously mirrors. But when the space itself supports your calm, you both begin to align. This is where design becomes therapy for both of you. A neuro-inclusive environment functions like a nervous system outside the body. The light, texture, sound, and layout all collaborate to co-regulate emotion. When you sit beside your child in a room that feels predictable, you're teaching them safety without words. When you lower your voice in a softly lit space, their heart rate synchronizes with yours. The architecture becomes an ally, amplifying every loving gesture. Think of the room as a third participant in your relationship, one that can either soothe or separate. In spaces filled with noise, clutter, and harsh light, your child's brain stays in defense mode. But in rooms built with coherence, warm tones, gentle acoustics, natural flow, both of your nervous systems relax. What happens next isn't decoration, it's alignment. Psychologists studying co-regulation describe this moment as attunement, when two rhythms, breath, emotion, awareness, move together in harmony. This isn't about control or perfection, it's about resonance. When you are calm, your child doesn't just see it, they feel it. That's why the environment matters as much for the parent as it does for the child. You can't co-regulate if the space keeps you in stress. You both need a place that breathes, where order and softness remind your nervous system that you are safe to love, safe to slow down, safe to connect. When neuroarchitecture honors this emotional link, the room becomes more than a space. It becomes a mirror of relationship. Every element whispers the same message. Your calm teaches their calm. Your peace becomes their world. Common mistakes parents make without knowing.
Most parents who set out to design a child's room do it with love. But love alone can't override the laws of sensory processing. The mistake is not in caring too little, but in assuming that what feels peaceful to you will feel the same to your child. For an autistic child, comfort doesn't come from what looks calm, but from what feels predictable. One of the most common mistakes is choosing aesthetics over regulation. Bright LED lights, themed walls, or crowded shelves may appear cheerful, yet they bombard the autistic brain with fragmented information. Studies from Autism Speaks and Magda Mustafa's Aspects framework reveal that inconsistent environments, ones full of visual noise, glare, and clutter, can increase anxiety and lead to sensory shutdowns. A room should breathe, not shout. Another silent error is mixing sensory zones. When the bed becomes a playground, the brain never fully associates it with rest. When toys invade the regulation corner, the child loses their anchor for calm. The autistic nervous system thrives on context. Each zone must serve one emotional purpose. If rest, then rest. If play, then discovery. If regulation,
then silence. Blurring these boundaries confuses their inner rhythm. Parents also underestimate sound. Hard floors, echoing furniture, or constant background noise create subtle stress that accumulates. Over time, this leads to sleep resistance, irritability, and avoidance behaviors. Likewise, synthetic scents, glossy paints, or chemical finishes may seem harmless, but release volatile compounds that overstimulate the senses. The autistic brain doesn't separate one irritation from another. It experiences them all at once. Then there's the visual trap. Too many colors, contrasts, or decorations designed to stimulate learning. The truth is, learning doesn't happen in overstimulation. It happens in safety. The child can only explore the world when their sensory system feels regulated. A calm brain absorbs. An overwhelmed brain defends. Finally, the biggest and most invisible mistake is designing from the adult's perspective instead of the child's perception. You might love bright natural light, but they may need filtered softness. You might crave background music, but they may need silence. You might want an open layout while they long for a nook, a place that feels contained and predictable. A successful room isn't one that impresses visitors, it's one that regulates its inhabitant. The true beauty of neuroarchitecture is invisible. It's in the rhythm of peace, the absence of chaos, the quiet hum of balance. Designing from empathy means seeing through their senses, not your eyes. Because every time you choose simplicity over stimulation, you're not just avoiding a design mistake, you're choosing to speak your child's language fluently. How you know the space is working. You'll know the transformation has begun not by how the room looks, but by how your child begins to exist inside it. The first sign is subtle. Their body relaxes. They move slower, their breathing deepens, their gaze lingers longer on a single object. You'll notice more eye contact, not because they're forcing it, but because the environment no longer demands constant defense. The space itself has stopped attacking their senses, giving the brain permission to rest. A study published in the Developmental Neurorehabilitation Journal found that when children on the spectrum spent time in rooms adapted to their sensory profiles, parents observed up to a 72% improvement in calmness, sleep quality, and spontaneous communication. This isn't coincidence, it's regulation. When the environment aligns with the nervous system, the brain stops surviving and starts learning. Sleep becomes more predictable. The room begins to cue the body into routine. Light dims gradually, sound softens, textures invite stillness. Behavioral specialists describe this as environmental synchronization, the process through which external order teaches internal stability. The child no longer resists bedtime or transitions because their brain can finally trust what comes next. You'll also see emotional change. The meltdowns that once erupted suddenly begin to decrease in intensity. They may still happen because autism is not something to fix, but now the recovery is faster. The room provides a familiar rhythm that guides the child back to baseline. This is what neuroarchitects call predictive safety, when space itself becomes a signal of trust. Look for signs of spontaneous play. When a child feels safe, creativity awakens. They start exploring textures, building, imagining. You may even notice more laughter, not from external stimulation, but from inner regulation. Their curiosity becomes the new language of peace. Parents often say, it's like the room finally fits them. That feeling is exactly what happens when design meets neurobiology. The space becomes an extension of your child's nervous system, one that no longer overwhelms, but supports. When you begin to sense this balance, pause and absorb it, because this is the proof that your effort has already been worth it. You haven't just changed a room, you've changed the conversation between your child's body and their world. Emotional closure, the sanctuary mindset. You are not just building a room, you are building a sanctuary, a place where your child's nervous system finally feels safe enough to rest, explore, and grow. Neuroarchitecture teaches us that the environment isn't passive, it's a living participant in the child's development. Every surface, color, and sound carries an emotion. When designed consciously, that emotion becomes coherence. The sanctuary mindset is not about perfection, it's about intention. It asks a simple question: does this space protect my child's peace? If the answer is yes, then you are already transforming more than walls. You are reshaping your child's perception of safety itself, because the brain doesn't separate physical and emotional space, it learns them as one. When a child feels secure in their environment, that sense of calm becomes their default state of being. This kind of environment speaks softly, yet powerfully. The walls whisper familiarity, the air carries predictability, the colors hold balance, the textures respond with kindness. You begin to notice that what once caused stress, transitions, noise, movement, now flows with greater ease. The child no longer resists the world. They start to belong in it. You are also part of this sanctuary. Your energy, your rhythm, your breath, they all interact with the space you've created. The calmer you become inside it, the more your child synchronizes with you. This is co-regulation in motion, not as theory, but as atmosphere. You're no longer managing behavior, you're cultivating harmony. A study from the Harvard Center for the Developing Child confirms that emotionally coherent environments reinforce neural pathways associated with trust, emotional literacy, and resilience. In other words, when your home feels like safety, your child's brain learns safety as truth. So, take a moment, right now, to look around the space you've built, or imagine the one you're about to create. Feel the silence between the sounds, the softness between the colors, the stillness between breaths. That is your child's sanctuary taking form, and perhaps your own. If this video helped you understand your child in a new way, write in the comments, "My home speaks their language," because that's exactly what a conscious home does. It communicates without words, translating love into sensory balance and design into healing. Science and soul in design. You've just learned how to translate love into architecture, how to transform your child's room into a language their nervous system can finally understand. What you've built is not just a room, it's an emotional ecosystem where every texture calms, every light reassures, and every silence heals. This is neuroarchitecture in its purest form: science meeting soul, logic meeting intuition, and design becoming therapy. If this video helped you see your child's world through a new lens, don't let this knowledge stop here. Share it with another parent who may still be decorating from the outside, not realizing that their child is asking for safety through their senses. You can change that story for them just as you are changing it for your own child. Before you go, seal this transformation with intention. Write in the comments, "My home speaks their language." Those words will serve as your commitment to design with empathy, to build spaces that regulate, not overwhelm, that embrace difference, not erase it. And if you're ready to go deeper, I've prepared a free guide for you, the 5-step blueprint for a sensory-regulated home. Inside it, you'll find practical layouts, lighting maps, texture palettes, and examples based on the same neuroscience we discussed here, everything you need to begin creating your child's sanctuary today. Remember this: a room that understands your child teaches them that the world can too. And when home becomes harmony, healing stops being an abstract idea. It becomes the air they breathe. You're not just designing a room, you're designing a future where your child's senses are not obstacles, but bridges.